Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Speed Talk. Tonight's episode 16, and we have the pleasure of being joined by Success Mississippi driver Chase Holland. Chase, welcome to Speed Talk, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to it.
Absolutely. So, I just want to get right into it. Looks like you're fresh off a win this last weekend. Take us through some of your recent success, things at the 100,000, just kind of your racing schedule the last couple of weeks.
So we started off with Speed Weeks, a Winter Nationals deal down in Florida, and we had a lot of highs and lows in that from or some DNFs, and then also we got a win at Volusia, so that was really neat. And then past that, the race season really hasn't kicked off anywhere, so we were kind of trying to pick and choose where we went, and we were able to race at Hattiesburg Speedway, one of our local tracks, and pick up a win there, and then we picked up a win at Old Number One Speedway, and honestly, I think that was one of the coolest places. The fans were really neat. The rule package was kind of unique, so it provided some really good racing. So I enjoyed that. And then we went and picked up a new race car and didn't really have any laps on it, and went straight to that 100,000 to win race, and it proved to be pretty good right there. So there's a lot of hope for our new race car. And then yeah, so we went and picked up a win this past weekend at Hattiesburg again, and then been very fortunate, very pleased with how everything's going so far.
What were your thoughts on that 100K after being down there for that full weekend there?
Man, I thought it was a really unique deal. I did not Barry Braun had that post on Facebook, and so my dad actually messaged asking for the free entry. So we went, and I didn't know the rule package, what you could or couldn't have until the week of, and that's where I found out you were able to mix. You weren't able to mix them, but a UMP guy could run Hoosiers or American Racers, and they allowed a UMP guy to have a 5-inch blade. So it was very interesting. I felt like the Hoosier tire was way better early. And then the track rubbered up in practice. So at that point, I felt like the Hoosier tire was kind of obsolete unless you ran a 60 on all four corners, which we didn't have access to that until Saturday night. And we ran that in the B main and still burnt 260s out of three off of our car, and that's a harder compound for people that don't know. So we were kind of nervous about that, and we ended up on the American Racer tire for the feature. And ultimately, I stuck it in the fence and went a lap down. So we ended up pulling in and just kind of watching the rest of the race unfold. But I think Barry Braun does a great job. I think it's a really neat deal, and I know in my lifetime I've never heard of 100,000 to win race, especially for modifieds like that. So I think what he's doing is really neat for the sport, and I hope he continues.
And now there's what? There's 300,000, 100 plus thousand to win mod shows just this year between what, Ogilvy, Salina, and Mississippi Thunder.
Yep. So and I think I don't know which one will be the best racing place, but I really am interested to see how the Mississippi Thunder race unfolds again this year. I felt like it provided really good racing, and then Ogilvy, I've never even really paid it any attention, so I don't know how well it will or won't race, but I think it again it's a neat event for sure.
Ogilvy
Ogilvy, I
is,
feel like usually races pretty good. It gets nice and slick and
oh yeah.
it's a real driver's track, but I feel like it provides pretty good racing.
Right on.
Ogilvy
How
is one
big
of,
is how big is Ogilvy? Is it half mile?
almost three eighths.
No, it can't be
It's
half
a little
mile.
bit, it's a bigger three eighths.
It seems big, yeah.
I'd say it's probably bigger in Deer Creek, but that sucker gets like, it's like moisture to glass in like 5 laps, it seems like. I mean, that sucker, when it cleans off, it is like racing on ice.
Really,
Have you raced
really.
there, Jackson?
Yeah, I raced there once in 2018 and
Topless, right?
Topless.
yeah, I raced there topless. So we were racing, we raced USRA Chase. We raced like Deer Creek Speedway, Mississippi Thunder weekly, and we went up to Ogilvy in 18 with our USRA B mod and run against the Wissota Midwest mods, and they got a 2-inch blade. And you really notice when we took those tops off and they had that 2-inch blade on that, on that slick racetrack, how much of a difference that, that little 2-inch blade made. But Yeah, we went there in 18 and I don't even remember how I did. I think I spun out once because it was so damn slick, but
Parker was the only USRA car in the
yeah,
uh
Parker did all
top
right.
five. He did. I think he finished fourth or something. But
Yeah,
track was
but
neat.
no, were
Going
you
back to that, Jack, you said you raced against, the other sanctions and stuff like that, and you could really tell a difference. Going back to that 100K chase, could you tell a difference between, your UMP car to a USRA car, a USMTS mod or things like that? Could you tell that big of a difference, or was it kind of not that big of a deal?
Talking about there specifically or just in general?
Just in general, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And just in general, certainly, like I feel like a UMP car, you're able to be a lot more aggressive behind the wheel with. I feel like you kind of backpedal a USRA car a lot more. You've got to be a lot more technical behind the wheel of that. But what I will say is you can't really like as aggressive as you can run a UMP car. You also have to be careful because when those tires get overly hot, like they're no good anymore. Whereas I feel like an American racer tire car can withstand a lot more abuse. So you've got to be a lot uh, more smooth in a USRA car, but also you can abuse it a lot more, so to speak.
so you say your UMP cars they gave you a 5-inch blade at this last 100,000 wind show?
Yes, sir. Yep.
No, and
What did
that's
they give you
different
at
from
the Fountain City one last year?
they didn't give you one, did they?
I didn't go to that one.
Oh,
I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
sure.
I
I'm
don't
not
think
They
sure.
got a 2-inch blade up here.
I
They
was
had to
gonna
have gotten
say I know they didn't
something.
get
They
a
had
big one last
a
year.
2-inch blade. I remember if we remember.
Yeah, I think they changed the rules after that race because I think some people complained about a UMP car maybe not being as good as a USRA car in those conditions. I'm not sure.
So would you say like your UMP stuff? I mean, I guess I don't know all the differences between the USRA car. I know your UMP stuff, you guys can run, you guys definitely got some bigger motors, correct? And I want to say, is like your right front suspension, is some of your suspension stuff a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, how do I say this? Like I said, I don't know all the differences between UMP and USRA, I guess. What are the biggest differences? Like, I mean, can you guys run a more aggressive right front setup, or I guess I don't know what the difference is between USRA car and UMP.
So the biggest thing, and that's a good question. I get asked that often. Like body wise, like you can take a USRA car and go run UMP a lot easier than you can take a UMP car and run in USRA rules wise for the bodies. Um, so body wise, like you're allowed so much more on a UMP car. It can be wider. It can, it can be a lot more tricked out. The nose can be wider. Like there's a lot of advantages, aero advantages on a UMP car that if you took it USRA racing would be illegal. But as far as suspension and stuff goes, um, we're able, like the rules are there's not as many rules, so you're able to travel the right front a lot further. You can be a lot softer on load numbers and stuff like that. Like that was the thing that was kind of eye opening to me is we're used to running, let's say 550 pound right front springs, and we go UMP racing and we're pushing the right front out and putting 450 pound springs in it, just softening stuff up. And then on the right rear spring rate, and maybe people are running this in USRA, UMP stuff, I don't know. But for us specifically, like we were used to running a 225 on the right rear, and we were down to a 175 with spring rubbers and stuff like that. So you're allowed more stuff in UMP, so that kind of like everything's a lot softer. The cars move a lot more. And yes, you're allowed a lot bigger engine package and stuff like that. So, but it's interesting because we have all of those advantages, and then you show up to 100,000 to win race like that with a USMTS style car, USRA car, and they're equally as fast. So
Right.
it's kind of eye opening.
I just remember last year at the big deal at Fountain City watching I was watching Jake Tim. He was leading the Friday night prelim race, and I think it was Tyler Nicely. He was in a UMP car, and I was watching from up top in the grandstands, and you could really tell the difference just in their like Jake's car gets on the nose really hard for a USRA car, and I mean Nicely was just twice as glued to the racetrack, it seemed like, as Jake was. I don't know if that's, like you said, if that's an aero thing, if that's the deck skew, if you're just getting more, downforce. I don't know what exactly it was, but just watching, just from the, I guess from the angle I was watching, just how much more glued the noses were on those UMP cars versus the USRA cars.
Right, right. I think some of it is an illusion just because of the bodies and the skew and stuff like that, but I do agree that there is some truth that they are a lot more stuck at times than a USRA car.
Right.
What are your thoughts on the USMTS stuff? Obviously, you've ran definitely quite a bit of that in your time behind the wheel too. Thoughts on USMTS, how who you're racing with and how they do everything?
That's a good question. Like, really enjoyed my time running USMTS. I don't think I was ready to go and run those kinds of shows, and we were doing it anyways, and it really helped me as a driver to develop a lot further than I would have otherwise. Those guys just I think Hot Carl said it best that, they have the same equipment that, anybody else has, but they get the max out of their stuff every single time they go on the racetrack. And I think that's the biggest difference is they push you. So I enjoyed it. The biggest problem with it is I think there's a little bit of I don't know. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I think there's things that could be better about it. But as far as the racing stuff, it just wasn't feasible for me to be able to run the deal being from Mississippi because it was 2 or 3 weeks on and then off and you had to kind of stay away from home. Like I don't know, there wasn't enough racing to justify being away from home as long as we were. So
Right.
UMP's a lot better in that sense of where we can race 3 or 4 nights a week.
And you guys probably had to come up this way most of the time, I guess, unless you were in maybe Texas, Oklahoma area, maybe early in the season or end of the season. But I feel like a lot of their stuff is
Midwest.
Especially
Kansas,
early.
Missouri,
Yeah.
yeah, and then slowly starts working up to here. But USMTS used to come to Deer Creek like 6 to 8 times a year, I thought maybe a year or two ago. But I just feel like the USMTS is in this area plenty, so that would be a lot of traveling.
Chase, question for you. Obviously, being from Mississippi, um, you're racing a chassis brand out of Wisconsin. Why is that? I mean, what makes you choose Mars?
Man, so that's interesting you asked that. Um, Cade Dillard was ultimately running their cars at the time, and Brooks Strength is a local guy to us. He's in our general area. He's about an hour and a half north of us, maybe further. But Brooks ended up coming and running a few local events. Like I had heard of MB Customs, but never really thought anything of it. And then Brooks showed up to some of our local events and just like dominated the field with an MB Custom. And it's like, well, it's Brooks, whatever. And then some of our locals got one local in particular got one of the cars and he just came to life. And it's like, whoa, we need one. So we ended up messaging Cade Dillard and Cade led us to a car in I think it's Kansas. The guy raced it at Lakeside, Nick Bittinger. It was one of his old cars, and it was originally Jason Cron's car. So we got it, and man, immediately like it upped our program from there. And then we started our relationship with Mars, and slowly, man, we've worked into something that is amazing. Like those guys have been very helpful, and I don't think I'd be where I'm at today without being in their equipment.
Absolutely, no, they build a good car, and it seems like, for as far away as you are from, Menominee and whatnot, or I mean, you see a lot of them in Texas, you see a lot of them kind of in that general region, southern region. Um, Obviously, it says something about, how good of a race car they do build if they're selling them, across the country.
Right. And I will agree on that. It's definitely interesting. When we come up there, whenever my first time ever to go to Cedar Lake, it was like, because down here there was probably 5 or 6 that I could name off that had MB Customs in our area. And we show up to the Masters event and there's like 50 cars, I want to say, let's call it 50 cars, and 20 to 25 of them were MB Customs, and it's like, whoa, this is their home, it was eye-opening. So yeah, they're not as big down here as they are up there for sure.
Yeah, MB
There
owns
was
Cedar
a
Lake.
point, dude, yeah, there was a point where everybody had an MB. Like,
2014 on, Rodney Sanders got in that thing. I remember nobody was in Mars stuff on the USMTS tour, and it was like Rodney got in one, kicked everyone's ass for like two. I mean, he's still kicking everyone's ass,
right,
but it's kind of evened off. But I mean, he had a stretch in like 14 to 16 where he won like I mean,
everything.
I think it was yeah, I think it was like 40 USMTS shows in that three year stretch. And then it was like, I mean, it's kind of like the Longhorn deal in late model racing, then everybody, he started winning, then everybody had Mars cars, and it's just racing's just a constant chase. Pretty soon, Mars was kicking everyone's ass, and it was GRT, then it was Hughes cars, and it's just a constant chasing game, it seems like.
It's kind of crazy because Chase, when you were down at Volusia there for Speed Weeks, weren't you like one of the only MBs down there too? I can't remember if I remember your dad saying that in one of the videos that you guys posted, but I'm pretty sure you guys were like one of the only ones down there.
Pretty sure we were the only MB there, and if there was another one, there was only one other one, but I
Mhm.
don't recall any other MBs there.
Right. That's crazy.
Now, was that your
Yeah.
first Speed Weeks appearance? Did you ever run down at Volusia, any of that over the years?
So I went to East Bay one year. Drake Troutman talked me into it. Just kept telling me like, you got to go, you got to go. And man, we went, and it was another deal like USMTS. Like I wish we could go back now. I think East Bay is one of the best places to race at in the country. I hate that it's shut down. I didn't realize at the time, how amazing it was. But man, we went down there for that week at East Bay and learned a lot. It raced really good. But other than that, no, I hadn't had any other kind of, speed weeks experience. So going into that deal and past that, I've rarely been on anything bigger than a 3/8 mile and stay really on quarter mile stuff. So when we showed up to Volusia, it was a monster, and we certainly weren't set up properly for that.
I know that you've been to on that USMTS stint that you went on there. You were at Webster City a couple times. Could you compare Volusia to Webster City like size wise, or is Webster even bigger than that?
Volusia's pretty big.
Webster's bigger than that.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna
as
say.
crazy as that
Yeah,
is.
Webster's
yeah.
bigger than Volusia?
I think so. Dad
Really?
measured it on Google Maps, like pulled a pin from corner to corner, and they were very similar. But man, Webster City was scary how fast we were going around
Oh
that
God, you've
place.
never raced Fairmont, Minnesota
Fairmont.
then.
I would compare Fairmont to Webster. Webster's got a little tighter of corners, but you carry so much speed in Fairmont. It's unreal.
I feel like Fairmont's way faster than Webster
Yeah.
City is.
That's on the
We're
USMTS
not
tour.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You won't have to worry about me showing up to something like that.
Not a half mile guy.
Not at all. Not at
Yeah.
all.
I
Parker always
agree.
gives us a hard time because we all don't like racing half miles, and he just absolutely loves them.
I race them things weekly as much as I can.
We're on
As
the 3A stuff nonstop.
Yeah.
as dumb
Smaller
as it
cars are better.
sounds, I don't want to say I get kind of bored on them, but it's like you turn and then you're coming down the back. It's just like you're on the straightaways for so long, and it's just I don't want to say it's boring because being in a race car is not boring, but compared to like you racing a lot of bull rings where you're just constantly turning and you're up on the wheel, like I just feel like that's so much more fun to race on personally.
Right, it is, and I think there's some truth to that right there. When you go from running a bull ring to on a super speedway, like everything has to be slowed down, and I think that's where I certainly struggle a lot of is like I'm constantly moving the wheel in there because like I'm anxious, like I'm ready to get to the next corner, and it's like it's half a mile away, it's forever away, so you gotta be very calm to be able to run a half mile.
Were you
Absolutely.
calm? Were you calm? Like I first started following your guys' YouTube page when you guys went to Bristol in 21, I think is when you guys went down there. That had to have been tough to keep calm going around that place. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like the first we went green for probably a lap and a half, 2 laps, and at the end of that, like the caution came out, and I was out of breath. I had been holding my breath for that, and it was certainly crazy to go around that place.
I mean, the
Yeah.
mod, you guys had to be doing 120, 100. I mean, that racetrack is not designed for dirt modifieds at all. Way
Right,
too
right.
fast.
Yeah.
Let alone sport compacts.
Was it pretty cool racing at Bristol though? I mean, was it a cool experience?
And it was crazy. And that's what I got to give a hats off to, for where I'm at right now. Not only in I guess you'd say my driving career, but on social media, we show up to Bristol and I think we had 6,000, maybe less subscribers when we got there. And by the time we left there, I think we had close to 12,000, almost 13,000
It's
subscribers.
crazy.
So it
Jeez.
propelled everything and really opened our eyes that we couldn't stay at the house and expect to grow.
Right.
Right. What did it
How did
take you?
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead,
Yeah.
but no, go ahead, buddy. I cut
Okay.
you off.
Yeah, we were gonna, since you said that, starting in Bristol and how many subscribers you gained, but like, how did that even come about? Like, as you're a fan, like as a family, like, how did you guys decide? Okay, let's start this up and start, recording and posting content. How did that start for you guys?
So, and I don't want to make it sound like we had the idea and the joiners stole it, because that's not at all what it was, and it never was that. But
Right.
my dad always videoed my races, whether it was practice, heat races, feature races, always videoed them. And then he would post at the end of a weekend, like a write up on Facebook. He would post the videos and then give a full rundown of what happened, leading up and everything, just kind of a summary of what's going on. So my dad had mentioned, like, won't we, put this on YouTube or do this or do that? And we talked about it, but it never, it was just like, well, whatever. And then the joiners, we started watching them. My dad showed them to me one day on YouTube, and then I was hooked. And we started watching it, and it's like, we need to do this. Like, we need
Yeah.
to, get on that bandwagon because they're growing. And we started doing it and had a lot of success immediately. So it's been really good. And like I said, I wouldn't be where I'm at today without social media.
How crazy of a balance is that between, trying to be able to create content, but also trying to get your work done so you can go and race?
Pretty tough. And I don't think it's so much the content creation as it is the relationships with sponsors and fans, and just trying to balance that, because it's really tough with you don't know, have I told the camera what I'm doing, or have I told my sponsors what I'm doing? Like, trying to remember who all you've told what, that way you're not constantly repeating yourself and stuff like that. And then that's kind of the toughest thing, is balancing sponsors, the social media, and trying to prepare a race car properly.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to be that YouTuber that's always recording content and gets so busy recording stuff that he that he forgets about his race car stuff and he sucks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want to dive back into, your year that you had last year, because I think what'd you have? 23 wins,
Yes,
24
sir.
wins, something like that between the late model and the mod. Um, that late model, it seemed like you jumped in and it was great right away. I mean, you had instant success with Nicest Motorsports. You take us through that, your success to last year.
Yeah, so Mr. Jason Ices he had been sponsoring, I can't remember if he sponsored me and then bought Talon a car, or vice versa. But Jason Ices had been helping Talon with his crate lake model. I know he had purchased Talon a crate car, and he reached out one day and was like, I'd like to, be a stepping stone in your career and all of this stuff. And we're like, we don't want to take anything from Talon and those guys. And he's like, no, no, I want to put you in a car. So at that point, I mean, we were, we kind of brushed it off. A couple weeks went past, and then that Alltech XR race, 100,000
Yep.
to win race, popped up, and Jason's like, register for this race. I want you to go to this race. We don't have a car. We don't know anything about Crate Lake models, like not a clue. So he's like, register. So we did it, and then I call him that day, and I'm like, what, like, what's the plan here? We don't have a car. And he's like, well, it's time to get a car. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want me to get? And he's like, whatever you want to get. And I think that was the coolest thing about the entire deal because a lot of times you hear people guys driving for people and stuff like that, and they're stuck to this chassis manufacturer, that they're stuck to whoever they're driving for,
Who that
what
right?
what they want. So Jason was very, clear that he wanted me to get what I felt like I would be most successful in. So immediately, like I've always dreamed of having a rocket late model. Like I love rockets, and I'm like, I want a rocket. So I started telling my dad and started looking on social media, talked to a few guys locally that were running crate cars, and my dad was like, "You need to talk to Jimmy. Like we've been good in the modifieds. Like you don't need to, cut ties with Jimmy Mars over, dreaming of having something. Like you need to talk to the Mars brothers. They've always been good to you. They've had you in good equipment. Like let's give them a shot." So I immediately after that called Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, thank you for calling me. Like it was an amazing conversation. And Jimmy's like, I have what you need. We've got some technology for crate racing that we aren't able to really dabble in crate racing, but I know it'll work because we've done it in the past. So we go and get this car. We get it the first week of April. And by the third week of April, we win our first race. And I think it was the last weekend of April, first weekend of May, we sweep a weekend with the Mississippi Crate Series and the Gulf South Crate Racing Association. So it was like that's a huge testament to what MB
Right.
Customs is about, and they certainly have an edge in crate racing on that. And so the rest of it, that's just a testament. Like I said, the biggest thing about the crate racing is MB Customs.
I think MBs have won the last several USRA limited late model national championships.
National
Obviously, there's
champ.
not I don't know what kind of field that is with those guys. I don't know how many guys are or how many places I guess across the country race USRA sanctioned limited late models. But yeah, I'm pretty sure MB's won at least the last two or three.
Yeah.
And that crate late model deal, I mean, that's a big deal down by you guys in that all tech Volusia area. I mean, I know when I don't remember what track it's at, or they have like a 604, 602 late model speed weeks, right? And they just have a ton of crate late models, right? Isn't that a thing?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
I just remember watching a race. I want to say it was
All tech.
Volusia, maybe it was or all
All tech
tech,
had a big
and
one.
they had like 120 crate late models. I mean, it was like a crazy number.
Yeah.
I mean
Yeah,
that
they are certainly big down here.
Mm.
Dang.
So obviously today I saw that you posted that thing for sale again. I mean, you got the body on it now. What was the decision going into this year? Were you getting towards the end of last year where you kind of just like, man, I miss racing the mod. I want to focus on the mod type of deal, and then just kind of work something out with Nice Motorsports, or what kind of went into that?
So, and that's kind of that's a tough thing there. Within crate racing, like it taught me a lot of valuable things about driving and stuff like that. And it really helped me in throughout all of my program, my race program. So with that being said, the negative side of crate racing is everybody's equal on the racetrack. So that means you have to be a bully, to be able to win races. And that was the toughest part is like I don't want to have to run you over or rough you up to outrun you. But I know in a crate late model, like it's more than likely what I'm going to have to do. So with that being said, like it was rough because like I said, we had to race people kind of rough at times. And with that being said, like we started to mellow out on the crate racing and focus more on the mod racing. And man, I've just always loved racing my modified in the Midwest in Illinois and Indiana area and a little bit of Ohio, like it's always been really good racing. The tracks kind of suit what I like to do. So, with that being said, like I was ready to, back away from the crate racing stuff. And then uh with me racing in the Midwest, there wasn't enough crate racing to justify having a crate car. And then Mr. Jason Isis told me that he was wanting to get Talon an A mod and let Talon run USRA mods and that stuff. So I just kind of felt like our team felt like it was best to kind of, part ways there and allow Jason to spend more time with Talon and his development as well as, allowing us to go and run the mod races that we wanted to go and race.
Right.
How many races a year are you putting in, would you say?
So last year we ran it was 100 events, so to speak, but I believe we actually raced about 70 or 80 features. So our goal was to run 100 features. And this year is still the same, is to race as much as possible. So there's really no limit or minimum that we're trying to race, but just every single weekend.
Dang.
Are you gonna try to stay down by, in the southern area, or are you gonna work your way back up towards the Midwest, or just kind of play it by ear type of deal?
So, and that's um I decided last year, this was in October, like I wanted to go and stay for 2 or 3 weeks in the Midwest and race those 2 or 3 weeks and just kind of see how I did. Like, is it feasible? Can I make a living? Like, can I survive racing in this area? So I reached out to Blaze Burwell because I knew he had a pretty big shop and a good establishment in business and all of that stuff. So I reached out to Blaze and just asked him like, hey, would you mind me racing out of your shop for a week or two, 3 weeks? And he immediately messaged back and is like, nope, no problem. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, are you sure? Are you okay with me coming to, work out of your shop? Because he like didn't even hesitate. And he was like, no, I'm positive. Like, y'all come on, come stay, come race. So we went and stayed, I think it was right at 3 weeks, and raced in that area and raced out of Blaze's shop. And man, while we were there, like, we really hit it off with everybody at Burwell Motorsports. And he told us, like, you're more than welcome next year whenever it's time to run summer nationals and all of that stuff to come and stay. We had an area to work out of. So with that being said, like we started this season and tried to go up there and race, and just the weather didn't really work out. But the goal is to race. I don't want to say like I'm gonna run the full tour or run the full deal because I'm not. Like it's all very well performance dependent. But if we're doing good, we're gonna run the Mars series as much it as we can, and then the Summer Nationals, the Hell Tour, we're gonna hit that. And with both of those things, I think it's right at about it'll be close to 60 races 40 to 60 races somewhere in that window of racing just with that. So
Have you done that hell tour before?
I never have, and it's always been a dream of mine to do. And I really paid close attention to it last year and kind of watched how it all went down and unfolded. And it's definitely something that I want to attempt and be a part of.
For sure. And I guess speaking of events you want to be a part of, um, I gotta ask just your opinions on the Gateway Dirt Nationals. Just obviously it's a great event for you guys, I'm sure, just with fans and apparel, whatnot like that. But as far as the racing goes, how do you feel about that place, and how could it get better? How could it be um, better every year, I guess?
I think honestly they put on an amazing event. I think the best thing about the dome away from the racing is the fact that we go out and we meet people all across the country throughout the year, and we may never see them at that particular racetrack or in that area ever again. But we show up to the dome and it's like it's a big reunion of all the people that we've met throughout the year. So I think that's really good. It's especially good for our merchandise sales and stuff like that. And then as far as the racing surface and stuff goes, I think they did a really good job, especially last year, of putting on a really good racing surface for us to race on. It had a lot of character, especially the last night had a lot of character. I felt like Thursday was kind of too boring and too smooth. I think it latched up for the super race. But by Saturday night they had it pretty juiced up, and that's what I like. Is for a track to kind of have character like that and have a cushion. So I think they do a great job with that. My only critique to it, and they actually fixed it for this year. So there's again no complaints or things that I think they can do better. Was the late model invitations. Like I love that you can register your your 90s Rayburn or whatever and come and run the event and say
Yeah.
that you did it. Like that's awesome. But when you rip the fence down every single time you hit the racetrack or cause
Right.
chaos, like you've got to go. So I think them going to invitation only has really helped their event for the late models. I think it'll make the show smooth.
I think that's been my biggest critique as well the last couple of years, obviously, like going down there. It's just, and when you're there and you can talk to people and grab a beer, whatnot, it's really not that big of a deal. But I guess sometimes there is, especially probably for the people at home, there's a lot of waiting around during that time. Like it does take a little while. But I mean, yeah, they do put on some good racing sometimes, like, but for the most part, I agree with you. They're kind of just out there causing chaos.
We've always talked about.
Definitely.
Oh, you
Sorry, go
go.
ahead, Jack.
No, we've always talked about. We're like, guys, like, what if we all pool in like $1,000 a piece and buy some old like '85 Masters built and just throw one of our B mod motors in there and go race the dome. Like, that would be a
Just
thousand.
cause.
Yeah, like entry opens at midnight. Like, be right on the computer, ready to get entered. I'm like, and go race the dome. And obviously, you're not gonna be able to do that anymore. But I do agree. Like, that was kind of cool. Like, there were some guys that got to race that event under the lights that probably shouldn't have been racing there, but that's something they got to experience that, nobody can ever take away from. But yeah, I think this invite deal is definitely the way to go because, like you said, when you're taking an hour and a half repairing fence, and we had Devin Moran on here, and he kind of talked about that a little bit. He said it's not that some people are more deserving to race there than others, but he's like, if you don't race 30, 40 shows, I don't feel like you should be able to come there and just show up and race. And so yeah, they've definitely, I think they're definitely doing a good thing with that invites, and hopefully they can, as they wean some of them guys that are causing all those issues out, maybe you can start pulling more of those super late model guys. I know a lot of guys are afraid to take their stuff there because they don't want to tear their shit up. Hopefully maybe they wean out some of these guys and you can get a few more big names at that show.
Right, no doubt. And real quick, I need to cover that up. Like I don't want to say that like Devin Moran said, like I'm not any more deserving than anybody else, and I don't want it to,
Yeah.
sound like I'm picking on anybody. And I think Tyler Carpenter's a prime example. Like I don't know his background, and I'm not saying like I'm not picking on the guy. Like, would he have gotten an invite if it was an invitation only? And
Right.
I feel like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what made Tyler Carpenter who he is. So there's
For sure.
definitely good things to it, but I think it's time to certainly go to invitation.
especially
Absolutely.
with the more money on the line. Those
Right.
Yeah.
bigger teams didn't get an invite or didn't get an entry because those other cars were taking them.
Right. And I mean, at the same time, I guess too, if I don't know how that works out because they must have had a limit on the late model stuff at some point. I don't know what the number was. Do you know, Corbin?
Was it 60?
I think
60
it
Something
cars?
around
was,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Right around 60.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's not too bad. But at the same time, I guess I was just gonna say if you really want to be there, you'll get in and signed up right away. If you don't, you don't. I mean, that's kind of what we've seen. There's guys that definitely don't show up there, but there's guys that go there and they love it every year. And Brandon Shepard, Bobby Pierce, we see those guys there year after year, and yeah, they put on a show. It's a great event. It's like right in the middle of everything, right in the middle of winter. Everyone just kind of meets
Yeah.
right in the center of America and watches inside of a football stadium.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's the coolest thing about it.
Yeah,
There's so many
I
fans.
think the time frame that they have that race is about as good as it gets because typically, stuff starts to kind of wrap up around that end of Oct. I mean,
For us
early
at
and
least.
end of September, mid-October, and then it's like you kind of get that break, and then it's like you get that month and a half, and it's like, okay, there's nothing going on. It's winter time. Now we can go to the dome, and then it's like, okay, you get back from the dome, you got the holidays, whatever, and then it's like, boom, Wild West shootout starts, speed weeks, and it's just I feel like Gateway's just a nice transition into, the next season.
I agree.
But no, so yeah, but now that we're kind of talking about the Gateway thing here, like what goes into your, what's going through your mind going to that show every year? Like, all right, we're gonna go to Gateway. We're gonna tear some shit up, How many bumpers do I gotta bring? How many breakaway bars do I gotta bring? How do you plan for a show like that?
See, like as far as that side of it goes, like uh we really didn't prepare any more or any less for that event as far as our car goes than we would anywhere else. And I guess that's a product of like the first year we went, we certainly were like we had all of this, we were prepared, like and then after that, like we didn't tear anything up. And then the next year, kind of the same way. So I think you kind of are in charge of how much you do or don't tear up. So definitely you need to have breakaways and stuff like that and spare front end parts and rear end components. But from there, I don't feel like you're carrying enough speed. Like obviously, unless you get in just a huge tangle up, like you're not gonna
Twist the
I
stub,
say you're not. I'll end up doing it this year, but you're typically not gonna, tear a rear end up or tear
right?
something, major up unless you're in somebody else's stuff. So as far as that goes, there's really no more or less preparation for it. But on the merchandise side of it, it's huge. You definitely got to prepare there, and then the boosts. Like I feel like we take a lot more pride in our booths than we do the wrap that goes on the car and the booth that you have for merchandise is the two biggest things that you prepare for at the dome, and I think that's the coolest thing. You can kind of tell that from people.
Right.
Were they real $100 bills?
They were not. If they were,
Uh,
they would have never made it to the
I was
car. They
gonna
would have been
say
no,
it.
spent.
definitely not.
I was gonna say if that's the case, you guys got way too much damn money.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
What um one more thing on the gateway stuff, I guess. What are your thoughts on like because the modifieds, they just show up and don't you, your first time on the racetrack, you have to qualify, right?
Right.
Does
Right.
that get a little stressful? I've always wondered why the late model guys get to hot lap and the mod get, I guess ever since um Jake started going down there a couple years ago, I started really realizing like, oh, they just go down there, show up and qualify. Like I guess that would just stress me out a lot. Not at least getting a lap to kind of test it out and see what I got.
It definitely makes you kind of it is tough. The biggest thing like for us is like you're there and you're trying this big spectacle, like you're trying to be locked in and focused and hyper focused on what you're doing, as well as trying to interact with your fans. Like you're trying to put yourself in a mindset, like a killer mindset, as well as, trying to be, a normal person and being able to interact with fans. So when you get in a race car, like it's tough because like you said, like you get no hot laps as a modified guy. So you have to go out there and just hope that you prepared everything properly, like your car is at least decent enough to put you in a decent position because I don't feel like unless you've went and tested prior to, I don't think you're just gonna, go out and go quick time immediately. Maybe you will, in some cases, but so at that point, it's a mindset of like trying not to knock the fence down, but trying to get the most out of it. Like it's very stressful in qualifying because I do know that if you bury yourself in qualifying, your weekend's practically over with.
Yeah, it's
Right.
such a big step the whole weekend. And yeah, like you said, that one little mix up in qualifying can screw you. But I guess so can a heat race too. It seems like some of these guys finish, maybe they wreck something or they finish in the back of a heat race they weren't supposed to. And then I mean, it's hard for some of these guys to claw out of the B main, the last chance qual. Like it just seems so difficult. But there are those guys that I feel like find the most success because they're getting the most out of their car, and their right rear is halfway up the fence when the cushion is thin as hell.
It's like Mike Harrison that one in I don't it was one of the first years. Mike Harrison was literally like on the wall, just driving the shit out of that thing.
There was a midget one year that I think won because
Jonathan Beeson.
yeah, put
Beeson,
it.
St-
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure he put his right side tires right on the fence
Still one of
and
Yeah.
the
passed the
best
guy.
races I've ever watched in my life. I don't know why Gateway ever got rid of the midgets because they put on
They
a
raced
badass
good.
show, I feel like.
I think it was a time thing more than anything. I felt like they put on
Yeah,
an
for sure.
amazing deal,
Yeah,
but the time it took to get them out there and stuff
Right.
kind of killed it.
That and it's right before the Chili Bowl, and that's what all those guys are focusing on. I mean, it's like
yeah,
probably like right at a month before the Chili Bowl, and all those guys are getting that stuff ready. And you lose all the big names like Rico and Kyle Larson and those guys who quit coming. I mean, I think they raced the same guys. They only had like 20 cars that year, Jack. That
Yeah.
they raced all 3 nights.
Yep.
They didn't have enough for prelims, I should say, but
yeah,
that's definitely a big deal.
for sure.
So, question for you, Chase. I guess for racing as much as you do, um, I don't know how that all works. Are your parents going with you to every race?
So in the past, last year they were at. I've only went to, I believe, four by myself so far. But this year is kind of different. They're really focusing on the family business. They have two other children. I have two other sisters, and they really are focusing more on them than my development and stuff like that on the racing side of stuff. So they will be at a lot of events, but also I think this year you'll see a lot of just Mikey and I out on the road, doing that stuff. And then of course whenever we go with Blaze and those guys, we'll kind of have a crew of help.
Yeah, because
So
I guess that was a question I was going to ask. What you said family business. I was going to ask what do your folks do for to allow them obviously missing a lot of work and whatnot. Obviously, it's hard to work a 9 to 5, be racing 4 days a week. What do your parents do?
So yeah, that's a great question. My parents they both own a bridal and formal wear business together, and then my dad founded a upscale resale business down here where they resell high-end handbags and jewelry and stuff like that. So between those two businesses, they're obviously self-employed, so that allows them to be able to kind of pick and choose their battles and leave work, and they have a great group of employees and. My sister actually has become one of the best employees down there, and she kind of runs the whole deal. So, with that being said, like that kind of makes it where it's flexible for them to leave and do what they want to do.
Sure. No, I was just always curious on that because you hear like I always think about that all these guys that are running these tours and whatnot. It's like your average person that's got to work. It's like you only get so much PTO and time off. It's like how are people able to do this? I've just always kind of wondered that.
No, I agree. And even the weekly racer, like everything's gotten so competitive right now that it hats off to a guy that works a 9 to 5 and also has a car that's competitive that can win week in and week out in any class. Because I know the kind of work and hours that we're putting into our equipment, just to run our weekly stuff. So a guy that's working a job on top of that, it's impressive. So.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the
Takes a
tough
lot of
part.
work.
Even like you said, even the weekly stuff, it's gotten so competitive
Hmm.
and it requires so much time just to, do this thing we do for fun. And it's so time consuming. It's like, okay, get done with work. By the time I get home, shower, eat, 6:30, 7 o'clock by the time you get out in the garage. And it's a lot for your average guy to keep up with. But again, I guess nobody's forcing us to do it. But like you said, it's kudos to those guys that work a 9 to 5 and are able to keep up and compete with these guys that are racing full time.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, 'cause
But
sometimes that stuff can feel like a second job because of how competitive it is. It takes that good of maintenance and that good of tire work and just everything really and checking stuff, making sure everything's tight. I mean, even that stuff is important and um yeah, I mean it can definitely get to be a lot, but We do it for a reason.
And it's
Right.
just like
That's right.
that consistent chase to keep up. You know what I mean? Like just that
Yeah, right.
consistent like this guy's kicking our teeth in every week. Like what's he doing? And it's you're laying in your bed and you're thinking about, oh, if I can get more angle out of here and get on the nose harder, blah blah blah. I mean, you know how it is. And it's just a constant chase, it seems like, but that's kind of what makes it fun. But
Exactly.
you said something about Mikey the tire guy. That was one of our topics we had here. Take us a little bit about the relationship with Mikey, how that all transpired. Just tell us a little bit about Mikey the tire guy.
Okay, so Mikey and we were both. I was 16, so he had to have been 14 at most. On iRacing is where I met him. I used to just we wrecked each other, and that was just that. And then we became really good friends through that, and had a local racing hero, Noah Daspit, that we both grew up watching race and stuff like that. So we kind of had a lot in common, and then. I was running the USMTS stuff. I had just gotten my lift gate and all of that stuff, and it had gotten to be a lot. And it was time to get a crew guy. And I had a guy that was interested. He was graduated or graduating. So and I had, like I said, I had bumped into Mikey here and there. He'd come to the shop, like we were friends, but I didn't know if he would go or not. And again, Mikey being 2 years younger than me, he was still in high school. So, that guy, he ended up not wanting the job, which is no big deal. So I was telling my mom and my dad, I was like, Mikey this, Mikey that, like Mikey would be a good fit, but he's still in school. And they're like, well, he can at least help you throughout the summer. Because he was a junior at the time. He was in the summer leading up to his senior year. So I was like, you know what, you're right. Like we're drowning here. Like we need a guy. So I messaged Mikey and he's on a farm. I'll never forget. He sends me a video on Snapchat. He's shoveling water with like it's a cup with a handle. Like he's shoveling
Like a
water out of
mug.
a ditch. Yeah, yeah, a mug out of a ditch and just dumping it out. And he's like, this is what the boss has got me doing, whatever. He worked on a farm and he's told me lots of stories. Like he enjoyed his time on the farm, but he just, that was just kind of the stuff he did. Like it was kind of a dead end. So, I offered him a job and he showed up that next Monday. So from there, like Mikey became, and originally he was just going to be a tire guy. He was just Mikey the tire guy. Well, um, the biggest thing is like you can't teach work ethic, but if they have work ethic, you can teach them everything. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. Mikey was just a sponge. Like there's a lot of stuff that I didn't have to teach Mikey. He just learned from watching me. And he's become a very valuable asset to our team. And honestly, he does it all. Like I'm able to kind of focus more on the social media stuff and the partnerships with sponsors and stuff like that. Just trying to focus on that stuff a lot more. So Mikey pretty well runs my whole program. He does everything except for drive the truck and the race car, nowadays. So yeah, like I said, he was originally just going to be a tire guy, and he he was eager to learn. So
I mean, he does wheel a race car occasionally, though, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the other thing about him. Guys on iRacing, you hear a lot about, and you've seen movies and videos and stuff like that about people that are good on video games being good in real life. Well, Mikey had very little racing experience. He had a limited mod, which would be, a B mod. And he only ran it, I believe, probably 3 or 4 times. So that deal, we ended up putting him in one of our cars that night and it impressed me. It obviously shows that a guy that's good on iRacing and has that kind of coordination and focuses on the little aspects of driving a car can be really good in real life.
Right.
I feel like
I think
sometimes, like when you talk to people about the iRace and stuff, sometimes people don't take it very seriously. But like, there's times I'll sit up here and I'll just run laps, at Cedar Lake or Fairbury, just right on the wall and just focus on being smooth on the wall. Like it does help you once you get out on the track in real life, like it definitely, like there's some stuff it doesn't replicate correctly, traction and whatnot, but like it definitely does help you as far as like getting into a rhythm or like if you're getting rusty in the off season, like it definitely is good practice.
I think the biggest thing that's helped me since I got my simulator was there was one well actually it was like COVID time basically. I got that sucker and I just started like loading. Me and Jake would just be on there all night long for hours. And I feel like that next season is when I like kind of stepped up my game in the real racing world too, because I think my throttle control got like way calmed out compared to how I used to be. Like I used to be a lot more start stop. And I think just all winter playing that sucker and like getting my ass kicked and wanting to be better, I learned and yeah, I think my throttle control got better and then obviously the next year we got a lot better, but yeah, iRacing I think is huge for me for throttle control, but I'm sure it helps a lot of people in a ton of different ways.
Think the biggest thing, like there's several things about iRacing that's really beneficial. And I think restarts and stuff like that, like it nothing's gonna put you more on job site training than being in a restart, on iRacing where if you jump start, obviously you get a black flag and stuff like that. So you try to figure out how you can manipulate it without getting a black flag, and that's very much, how it is in real life. And then the other thing is like I think it really teaches you how to break down what another guy's doing in a race car, especially, like one of their latest updates, you can watch somebody qualify. And I think it's huge in like a fixed setup race where you can kind of analyze like, okay, he's doing this, he's backing off here, he's putting his wheel input here, like I think that's kind of the stuff and it transitions into real life of where you can kind of pay attention to where somebody's picking up and letting off and how much steering input they've got. Like, I think that's the biggest part of it.
No, absolutely. Like there's
I'm
times
with you.
there's times I remember one time I was racing a 50 lapper at Lernerville and I won my heat and I was on the pole. I had Mike Harrison outside of me. I had like some like actual good guys and I'm like, fuck, I'm kind of nervous. Like I'm sitting on the pole. I'm like, geez, I'm sitting here upstairs in my bedroom, but I'm like, this is pretty intense.
Dude,
Like,
my heart used to pound
yeah.
when I'd be racing on iRacing. It didn't matter if it was a nobody. I would literally be sitting on the pole, heart beating, and just hands like constantly just wiping them off because I'm sweating
Clammy.
so fucking bad.
I remember in 2019, I got my setup for the first time, and I won my first feature. It was a 40 lapper at Limaland, and I was racing with Richie and Jimmy Gustin, and
Yeah, they
like
were on there a
that,
ton.
and that's when it's like fun, like when you actually get with real racers that don't just like wipe you out, like they actually lift. And I won the race, and I remember Richie's like, "Hey, good run, kid." It was like that was a big deal. Like I just beat Richie Gustin. Like it might have been on a video game, but that was stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyways, we've had you on here for about an hour, so man, we'll get you off here. Um, just maybe take us through a little bit of your near future upcoming schedule, some big races you plan to hit, and yeah, just kind of a few of them things.
So I think our schedule is going to kind of mimic the fun tour that Turbo has. I'm a huge Turbo fan, and we talked to him at the beginning of last year, and my dad had already kind of been on me like, we need to stay away from the big shows. We need to focus on the quantity of racing that we're doing, and not so much the quality of the big shows. Like, let's stay away from that. And I think that there's some truth to that. So I think we're going to stay away from, like I said, we're going to run the Mars tour, some of it. We're going to run the Hell Tour, Summer National stuff. But as far as like a big race that we have pinpointed down, like that we're trying to go to, there's not anything on the radar. It's just kind of weekly. We're going to be staying at Blaze Burwell shop. Pretty well most of the summer. And with that being said, like anything in that area, like we're gonna go racing weekly. We struggle really, really bad at Fairbury, and that drives me insane. So I think we're gonna be a regular at Fairbury for their weekly racing just until we can kind of get that figured out. So
That place looks like a riot. That place looks fun.
Yeah.
it's awesome.
And then I guess if you want to tell for the people that don't know where they can find you on social media, where they can buy apparel and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. You can go to our website, chasehollandracing.com, and that'll give you kind of our news updates and apparel and stuff like that. But if you want to watch our vlogs and stuff like that, you can check it out, Chase Holland Racing on YouTube. And then for our latest news and updates, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Chase Holland Racing.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, I think we can
Appreciate
leave.
it, man.
Yeah, I think we can leave her at that. Yeah, we wish you a lot of luck this year, man. Maybe we'll see you up at Mississippi Thunder Speedway for that 100,000 win show. And yeah, thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Good luck to you guys, man. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks.
having me. And man, that Jamboree trophy and stuff in the background, that's really neat. Like that's something to be
Except
proud of.
it's just
Yeah.
500 bucks, but
That part doesn't matter. That race
oh,
right there is prestigious. Like
sure.
that's a big deal.
Oh yeah,
Will
I was
you
pretty
be up for
stoked.
that at all? Will you come up for the Jamboree?
Man, and that's something I would love to run the Jamboree. I would love to run the Masters, but none of my equipment is USRA,
Yeah,
USMTS
sure.
legal. If I somehow, some way could find a ride and it was feasible to do, like I would love to run the Jamboree and the Masters, like those two events. I would love to come and do. So I don't know if something was to work out for sure, but not in my equipment.
If you've got a motor to bring, we've got a 2005 Skyrocket. We could put a pull bar.
There you go. There
We
you
could
go.
throw you in Dad's car. But
Yeah.
alrighty, man. Well, like I said, we appreciate it a bunch. We will get this edited up and get this uploaded soon. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.